Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Nobu Kumalo, and if this is your first time, welcome, and if you're coming back, welcome back. So some of you might not know, but I actually live in London, United Kingdom, and I've lived here for 3 years now, since 2019 January, so this is like my fourth year. And I often get questions about like what living in London is like, the cost of living, whether I enjoy living in London. And so if you've ever been curious or wondered what living in London is like, whether just out of curiosity's sake, or if you're considering if you should take that job and move to London, this video is for you. I'm going to tell you about what living in London is like, and I'm just going to break it down to 5 parts. So I'll tell you about the weather, the transport, the accommodation, the diversity, entertainment, and then I'm gonna nicely wrap it all up by giving you a brief breakdown of what it costs to live in London. So the cost of living in London. So let's get started. So the weather. I'm sure if you've heard about Europe, you know that it's generally a cold place. That is true for London. So our winter generally officially starts in December until February, but it generally starts getting cold around October, and the sting sort of lasts until about May. And during that time, you can expect temperatures to average between 2 and 6 degrees, but that shouldn't scare you because the buildings are very well heated. So usually you don't even need a jersey indoors. I mean, you can see it's winter now, but you can see that I'm not even wearing a jersey. So people usually just get indoors and hang up their coats and just go about their day. But the frustrating thing about winter is that it's also usually wet. And for me, that is the worst part, because I can deal with cold, but I don't quite like the fact that it's usually always just wet, you know. It's not really rain, but there's like a mist of some sort. It's just always wet. And during winter, the worst part also, especially when you're just, arriving in London, is that the sun will rise at around 8 a.m. and set at 4 p.m. Yes, 4 p.m. So it will literally get pitch black dark by around like 4:30 in winter. That's like at the height of winter, around like December, Jan. And that can really be off-putting, especially if you're a person who loves the sun, loves being outdoors, because you can imagine if the sun rises at 8 and then you're indoors for work until 4, by the time you get out of the office, it's already dark. It can really be disturbing, and your sleep patterns can also be disturbed. But how you can curb that is you just make sure that, you find a few minutes in the day to be outside in the sun, so that you lift up your spirits, because it can really be depressing to be in cold and dark and gloomy weather all the time. But that said, the winters are beautiful, especially around Christmas with the Christmas lights and all the other Christmassy things that happen in London. I mean, Londoners are very, very big on Christmas. It's always a wonder to see in Christmas. And the other thing is, as cold as it gets, it doesn't snow in London. Like, it rarely snows, once in a couple of years. I remember actually last year in January, it snowed for like 1 or 2 days, and people came out, myself included, came out to see the snow and play in the snow, because it just never really snows in London. But gloomy weather aside, the summers are beautiful. The summers in London are beautiful. The one thing I love about London also is that there's a lot of greenery, green spaces and parks in literally every neighborhood. And so in the summer, those really come alive. People go out for picnics, people have fun. There's a lot of stuff that just happens around summer. People go hiking and all that. The city really just comes alive in summer. And in summer, you can expect temperatures to average between 18 degrees and well into the 30s, which is quite amazing. But it can also be a bit uncomfortable because our buildings were built to withstand the cold. So in the summer, it can get really, really frustratingly hot indoors, but you just make do. And the other thing is, it flips around. So in summer, you can expect like the sun to rise at around 6 a.m. and it will set at like 10 p.m, which is also amazing, because it means you get out of work and you still have like 4 or so hours of sunshine to, to experience. So I really love the summers. The summers are beautiful. They come alive. The greenery, the green spaces, they really just come around. So it can be a gloomy winter, but it's also always a beautiful summer. And I think the two complement each other very well. Next, let's talk about transport. It has what I believe, I'm not very well traveled, so I could be wrong, but I really believe that London has one of the most reliable public transport systems ever. People generally use the train or the buses. There's also the ferries and trams and bicycles. So there's this Cycle for London scheme where they're like bicycles in many different ports, and you can literally hire one for a day. I think it's £1 or £2, and you just cycle around and you drop it off wherever you're going, and you pay £1 or £2 for the day. But generally, I think the most used modes of transport are the train and the bus. The transport network is broken down into like zones, so like zone 1, 2, 3, 4, going up until I think 7. So what you'll pay depends. This is for the trains. What you'll pay depends on which zone you're going to. So if you're going from zone 1 to another place in zone 1, it's going to be cheaper. If you're going from zone 1 to about zone 4, it can be more expensive. But I think on average you can expect to pay about £4 one way during peak, £4 or £5 one way during peak. And then the bus system, I think, is about £1.50 wherever you go. And the other good thing is that these are capped. So if I have to travel to many different places in one day, it's not like I'll keep paying £4 for each trip. At some point there is a cap, depending on the zone that you're in. There's a cap that you get to, where if you travel anywhere else on that day, you're not paying anything at all. So the transport system is really amazing, and because of that, a lot of people don't actually drive to work. I've lived here for like 3 years, and I don't even own a car because I really don't need one right now. I know I'll get a train or a bus, which is always on time and always have many options. So it's not like just one bus, and if you miss it, then you can't catch another one. There's usually like 3 or 4 buses that are going in the same direction, all within like 5 minutes of each other, which is really just amazing. It's so efficient, and it's literally, it's just the best. I love the transport system in London. And a lot of people don't drive to work, especially to central London, because it is expensive to drive in central London because of the taxes that have been put in there to sort of like curb transmissions and global warming and all that. So literally, even the highest paid person, even like the highest paid partners in my office, we all take the train, we all take the bus. Accommodation in London is expensive. I am not even going to lie to you. That is the most expensive thing in London, accommodation. So typically you will find that because of the high cost of accommodation, it's a very normal thing for people to do house shares here. So like get a 3-bedroom house and each person has a room and you share the common areas. When I say people, I mean even, high earning professional services people. It's very common for people to do flat or house shares. In terms of the houses, you usually get the the Victorian style one line attached houses, but then now there are a lot of new build apartments that are coming up. For example, like in the area that I live, which is in Wembley Park, we have a lot of these like new builds which are coming up. What can you expect to pay? Let's say if you want to stay alone, you like your space and you want your bachelor pad or your 1-bedroom apartment, you can expect to pay between 1,200 and 1,400 for the place without the bills. But if you were maybe sharing in a house share, a 3-bedroom house, then it drops, because obviously if a 3-bedroom house costs like maybe 2.4, it means that everyone is paying about £800, which is why a lot of people opt for the sharing. But the good thing about the new builds, which are the expensive ones, that will cost you about 1,200, and maybe if you want to get a 2-bedroom, that's about 1,750 going up. The good thing about the new build apartments is that they come fully furnished. Like literally, you just need to walk in with your clothes. You have your couch, your beds, your tables, your TV stands, your carpets, your fridge, dishwasher, washing machine. Those 3 are standard. Fridge, dishwasher, washing machine are very common standard here in new build apartments. So it is quite expensive, but it kind of balances out if you think of the fact that you don't have to furnish the house, your apartment. But then if you move into like a standalone house, then those are usually empty and you have to like furnish it yourself. The other thing about accommodations, because of how expensive it is to live in London, you typically not live close to work, right? So the further out you go from central London, from like the CBD, the cheaper it becomes. So it's another very common thing that you literally usually live about 45 minutes to an hour away from home, and it's very normal. Like that is the average commute time one way, for a person who lives in London. You can find places in central London, but usually those are very expensive, and the space will be very limited. So it usually makes sense, especially for families, to move further out, which then means that you have a longer commute into the office. But you have to pick and choose whether you want a shorter commute or you want to pay less, and you have to just make the decision which is best for yourself. Moving on, the diversity. That is one thing that I love about London. London is so diverse. You have people from everywhere, all over the world, even from countries that you've never even heard of. For example, in professional services or in the, in the workplace, you actually find you can literally be in a team and only have like one British person, right? And you can have people from Africa, from Asia, from America, from Australia, from everywhere. So it's a very diverse place, and because of that, I feel it kind of makes it easier to settle in, because you're not expected to look a certain way or sound a certain way, because literally everyone in the room has like a different accent and looks different, so you can sort of feel free to settle in and be yourself and sound the way you sound without having to like tweak your accent so that you sound British because everyone in the room is British, because that is very rare. That really happens. That's one thing that I really love about London. It's so diverse, and as you interact with people, you get to learn how people are so different out there here. There's so many different cultures, so many different ways of doing the same thing, and it's just an amazing and enriching experience being in London because of the culture. And because of that diversity, the food also in London, amazing. I'm not sure about the British food, that one is never salted, never, like, it's just bland. But I mean, like, the food from all around the world, you can literally find food from everywhere. If you're into Asian, if you're into Caribbean, if you're into American food, if you're into Greek, if you're into African food, especially like West African, I think those are the most, but you can still find, like East or South African type of food. But the dining experience is really amazing. There's literally food for everyone from everywhere. And in a neighborhood, we have this thing called a high road, which is like, it's literally the main road in the neighborhood, and that's where you'll find all your convenience stores and your banks and all that. I think they're built in such a way that people don't have to go to the CBD for services. So every neighborhood has a high road where you can literally find everything you will need, be it your clothing shop, your food, your hair and stuff, your banking and your medic supplies, all that. You find that in the high road. And usually in the high roads, you have many stores of people from different countries, from Pakistan, from Italy, from anywhere and everywhere. So if you're that person who really loves food from home, you will find it usually in those high road stores. There is a bit of a shortage when it comes, I think, to African grocery stores, especially in London. But I know that in other places like Birmingham, Coventry, going up north, you will find a lot of those. So the food is also really amazing. And finally, entertainment. I'm not really a groove type of person, but I know that if you're into partying, if you're into get-togethers and all that, there's a lot of that happens in London. And if you're into a nightlife, I tell you that 11 p.m. in London or midnight in London looks like 9 p.m. in South Africa. People are still, or in Zim, people are still walking around, people are chilled, people are having fun, people are leaving work. That's another thing on its own. So if you're into the nightlife, you can literally be out late as much as you want. And the good thing is that you still have your public transport home, because the trains and the buses will still be running up until a certain point. I think past midnight or past 2 a.m. they stop running. I'm not too sure. But yeah, there is a lot of that. And the other thing, especially in the summers, there are a lot of like pop-up amusement parks that come around to neighborhoods. Those are really great, especially if you have a family and you have kids. Those are amazing. And like I said, the parks come alive. There's a lot to do, a lot of parks to see, a lot of scenery and greenery to visit. That is great. Street theater is also a thing. There are a lot of street performances. If you're into that type of art and culture thing, then you will really have the time of your life when it comes to street theater. And then if you're a foodie like me, like I said earlier, so many restaurants to go to, so many options. You can literally hop and chop around as much as you want. And I think I haven't even seen a tenth of the restaurants that there are in London, because I'm a homebody like that. But yeah, there's something for everyone. And also if you're into shopping, there's a lot of that. Popular places being Oxford Street. which is almost in central London. That's where a lot of people go for their shopping. You find a lot of your high-end stores. And then you also have the London Designer Outlet, which is here in Wembley Park where I live, which has not all, but most of your designer outlets like Nike, Adidas, Puma, June, Kurt, like a lot of your designer labels and stores, you'll find them here. And then the other thing about entertainment is that people in London, I mean not say London, but Brits are really into sport. Like they go all out, right? So I live right next to the Wembley Stadium, and it's always amazing when there's a game. People come in full gear and the full colors with their families, and it's always just a vibe. I'm going to show you a clip of what it was like here during the Euro Cup final. It was mind-blowing. It was amazing. The team spirit, the singing, the laughing, the alcohol. That wasn't fun because like they spray alcohol anyway everywhere, but that's neither here nor there. People are really into sport, and they literally just go all out and will show up for their teams and will show out. Like they don't miss when it comes to that. So if you're into sports, you will really have a great time. And Wembley Stadium is easily accessible no matter which part of London you live in, and that's where usually most of the big games are played, so you can always book a ticket and come and watch. So yeah, there's a lot to do in London. There's a lot to see. Also, there's a lot of free places to see. For example, you can literally go and see Buckingham Palace. Doesn't cost anything. Buckingham Palace, London Eye, London Tower, London Bridge. Yeah, I'm sure there are a few more places that you can visit, which are free and open access to the public that you don't have to book for. Oh, and another thing that I love about London is also the free guided tours. So you can literally, like, there are many websites that you can go to online. If you just search for like free London tours, you find tours that are completely free, and the guide will take you around London. And then the trade-off is that at the end of the tour, out of the goodness of your heart, you can just tip the tour guide, but there's actually no fee for the tour. The other thing I must mention about entertainment also is that you randomly get to a place and you're like, I've seen this place in a movie. That's the coolest thing for me. I'm going to show you a clip of me standing where there's a scene from The Eternals that was shot at Hampstead Heath. I'm going to insert a picture somewhere here or there. And so when I watched The Eternals, I was like, I stood there, and that was fun. It's always nice to be like, I stood there. Sometimes you're watching something and you see like a postcode and you're like, I can literally jump on the bus right now and go to where they shot the scene of such and such a movie or such and such a series. So it's always quite fascinating. So that's part of the beauty of London, that a lot happens here. A lot of groundbreaking stuff happens here, and it's just fun, man. It's a great place to live. It's very safe as well, I'll say that. So it's fun. Would I do it again? Probably. Would I stay in London forever? I'm not sure, because it's a very, very busy place. So I think it's a place that's very good for your career advancement. But this is a video on its own. I'm going to do a video on working in London. But yeah, it's a very, very fast-paced place, very busy, poor work-life balance. You really have time for people and friends. So it's a give and take type of thing. There's some things that you will get, but you have to give up other things. But that's a video on its own. But overall, I love living in London. It's amazing. With its ups and downs, I would live in London again. Now, I promise that I'll just wrap it up with a breakdown of the cost of living in London. So here I'm just gonna go on like more of the high-end stuff, so like almost the worst or the highest you can expect to pay. I have done this and done my research based on one person who doesn't want to do a house share, so you want to live alone either in a bachelor pad or in a one-bedroom apartment. So the costs that I'm detailing here are for one person living alone. So you would expect to pay rent of about £1,200 and council tax, so that goes into taking care of your neighborhood, pays for the lighting, the bins, the cleaning and all that. So you can expect to pay about £200 in council tax. For your utilities, that is your Wi-Fi, your water, your electricity, you can expect to pay about £140 total. Then your transport to and from, maybe 4 to 5 days a week from work, £160. Groceries, you can expect to pay about £80, and that is a lot really for one person. The good thing about London also is that there are a lot of stores for like different things and different prices. So on the high end, you'll have stores like Marks and Spencer and Waitrose, and then on the low end, you'll have stores like Aldi and Lidl. And then on sort of like the middle, you have places like Tesco and Asda and Sainsbury's, where you can like buy your stuff. Then gym, you can expect to pay about £35. And entertainment, I don't know if you eat out or whatever, or you like going out partying. I'm not into that, so I can't really say how much entertainment costs, but let's just throw in about £100 or so there. So I think in total you can expect to pay or spend about £2,000 per month per person if you're living in London. And remember, I said that I sort of put these on the higher end, so you can structure your life differently such that you pay less. E.g., you can share a house instead of like being in your own house. That is the general cost of living in London. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope if you've ever been curious about living in London, that your curiosity was satisfied. And I hope that if you're trying to decide if you want to move to London, or if a job that they're offering you is going to pay you enough, I hope this was helpful for you to get an understanding of what it looks like to stay in London and what it costs. Thank you for joining me for this video. Please like, please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, there's a red button below. Please click the subscribe button. This will really help the channel to grow. Share the video with your friends, not only this video, but all the other videos and the channel in general. And let's help this channel grow. Thank you for joining me once again, and I'm going to see you next time. Bye.